If my dad came back from his grave to the workspace today, he would be so surprised what people are doing today, how everything is constantly evolving.
But there are certain decisions within the organization that require more than just data. There is politics involved in certain decisions.
One of the biggest challenges we have in our organizations is the resources and budget, and you're forced to use open source technologies to accommodate some of these things. Senior management expects you to do a lot. That's a big issue.
Good evening, everybody. We're always excited to have guests that make time to come and share their insights, especially to benefit those people who not normally afford agency fees or hang out with people like you, rub shoulders with people like you, that they're able then to get all this information on this webinar. My name is Agi Patricia Churomwe, CEO at Agile Media Africa. I'm always humbled to moderate these sessions. Today, we are going to be diving deep into the powerful topic, reshaping industries and decision-making, advanced analytics for predictive business strategies. If my dad came back from his grave to the workspace today, he would be so surprised what people are doing today, how everything is constantly evolving. Businesses are proactive with tools and cookies to use analytics to their advantage and anticipate market shifts, what customers are thinking or customers would want, and also anticipate any challenges in terms of operations. So today we're quite excited. We look forward to hearing from you guests, predictive customer needs, how businesses can improve their operations, how they can manage risks, how they can drive strategic decision-making with these analytics. So we're going to hear from different experts, especially those who are working in the front line of data analytics, but also business intelligence. Mr. Mukembo Francis Xavier from Tugende. He'll walk us through how data is being used for business growth and risk management in growing enterprises. We will also have Miss Lydia Tasia. She will speak about how data insights have actually influenced expansion into new markets and why data literacy is key across all departments. Miss Betty Kakyo, marketing lead at Agile Media Africa, she normally summarizes key takeaways and highlights how storytelling plays a crucial role, especially in making data accessible, meaningful, actionable, but also she'll give a recap on what our speakers of the day have actually mentioned. Without further ado, we're looking forward to hearing from you today. A lot of our young listeners are always interested about digital data. Francis, head of data, it will be nice to hear from you how data is being used, especially for businesses. A lot of businesses in Uganda start and don't survive the first or second year. Tell us about how you're using data to grow businesses, but also to mitigate risk. So let's hear from you first.
Thank you for this platform. I love these platforms. I get to share what we've experienced. There are quite a number of challenges in our field. Let me just put this on my screen. Just a moment. Okay, I think that's very clear. I'll start with a brief introduction of myself. Mukembo Francis Xavier. I'm currently the head of data, analytics, and BI at Tugende. Tugende is an asset financing company. We serve East Africa. We are in Uganda, Kenya, and Mauritius. I'm currently acting as a global head. We have a number of data challenges and quite a number of innovations we've been adopting over the time. And data is a very good field. It's a field I encourage everyone to join. It looks scary at first, but it shouldn't be that complicated. I'll dive into aspects of risk management and operational efficiency together. I'll start with the operation research. So this has been a key field that we have worked with. One thing I always tell my team members and my staff is when you're in the data department, you should be the most intelligent person in the organization because you serve all aspects of the entity. You should be in finance, operations, human resources. You cannot limit yourself by not understanding these concepts. I'll talk about misconceptions later that we have and why many human resource managers are struggling with even recruiting the right talent. With operations research, I'm not used to get as a case study. I've worked in quite a number of organizations, but this is a good one for us to work with. We are an asset financing company, meaning whenever we lend, we give an asset to our borrower. That's also collateral to our side. And there are quite a number of challenges and aspects. First, our data is at the center of every decision we make at Tugende. Having grown as a fintech, that's one of the reasons as to why we do that. And we have 23 branches in Uganda and 10 in Kenya. We have a few spread across the continent. I'll focus on Uganda. Most branches were not selected at random. We did some market research and we use a few insights from experts. Most of our work is from the data perspective. We utilize what I would call a linear approximation. It's a model that estimates where we exactly have to utilize and place our branches. So we initially had a few branches, but we've been expanding based on this model. We've not only expanded, don't think everything has been rosy. We also use the same model to find out areas where we should release our services. It's no longer marketable, not profitable now as we speak. So we use branch optimization in Python, the programming language, and even Excel can do that. In Python, we have something we call Pi. It's a library that helps us optimize. You put in ingredients, coordinates of the place, the population. It will try and scan using a GPS, using all kinds of data from the Google Cloud that will tell us where exactly we should aim at putting our branches at. And once we get that ready and we are comfortable with where it has to be, we then have to negotiate with the suppliers and with everyone else where we want to rent and where we want to put our branch. And that has been one of the key aspects of implementation. That was operation research. Another application which is cost effective is inventory management and transportation. We get assets from all over the country. That is, let's say we have some of our clients, we have those that are TVS. So because we deal with borders, they also have depots around the place. So we usually use these to optimize whether we should get it from Kampala straight to, let's say, Mbarara, or there are closer branches and that would be cheaper. Sometimes a closer branch may not be cheaper because the route might be stretched. You may have to turn 360 to reach a specific location. That model helps us plan our transport costs. This has been a headache for finance in a long time, but over time we've been able to optimize this. So budget planning is covered when you apply these kinds of models. Another issue is inventory. We don't stock inventory at Tugende. That's a very dangerous sport of stocking inventory. Inventory gets spoiled. So we are working with a just-in-time model where we exactly have our suppliers ready, and whenever our clients need an asset, we can efficiently get them, but we have to contact the closest supplier. This is data driven. So we have all these and we have different interfaces from which our own staff can be able to see where exactly they can ask for that demand. Once we have this information, we are confident that things are going well. At times, we have peak season, disbursing more than 1,000 assets in just a period of time. And it's a peak season, you have staff who are at branches that are not disbursing as much. Our capacity optimization helps us push this staff and we relocate them in that period of time until probably when their parent branches catch up. We have an average of 500 to 600 assets per staff to be managed. And we are worried that this is maybe overcapacity for our specific account managers at a specific location. We then use this to optimally pick out which specific locations do not require all that capacity, and then we can relocate efficiently. As I said, budget planning, all these greatly imputed in budget planning, and this is why we specifically always say in data, be aware of all arms of your organization. You shouldn't make a mistake of only focusing on a specific line of duty because they are all intertwined. Yeah. In operational research, this is an area that not so many employees love, especially those who have sticky hands. This is where we do fraud detection with our models. We've had quite a number of instances, not only in previous organizations I've been at and where I've also been a consultant. One of the key issues we have is ghost borrowers, where you have your own staff borrowing from you. especially when you have mobile loan. We have an auto detection mechanism that detects a phone number already in our system, owned by our staff, that also quickly picks that up. Some of these are proactive, but some are reactive, especially the one that deals with the GPSs. So if you're dealing with GPSs, if we see an unprecedented number of borrowers from a specific location, we can red flag that. So that is also something the data does. What I would call, this is an algorithm. It's called clustering. So we clustered phone numbers together. So that's what it does clearly. We cluster them and then it picks that out, gives us a red flag. And then we also have some of our account managers who get in rapid onboarding. You get a month, a person has gotten 1,000 people, and then the next month, these 1,000 people showing signs of default. So these are things that we auto detect quickly and we give them limits, and the limits are in the system. We also have underwriting agents. What are these underwriting agents? This is data and AI. Our artificial intelligence team, which is still under my arm, that's the department, we build agents that help us underwrite contracts. So once we have your pictures, everything like your national ID, your documentations, what we do is once you scan that, our system will automatically try and flag out things that do not conform with what we've given it. So if something is not clear, maybe the signature is not clear, it flags that. When the national ID doesn't have 14 digits, it will flag that. So it gives us fast turnaround time. We actually have underwriter, but this supports the underwriting team to also pick out things it has not been able to pick out. So that helps us fast underwriting. So then we have had also other issues. I think this is something that happens across so many organizations where you want a report and there's only one person to give you that report. So that is a big issue. Sometimes 2 or 3 people may not understand the specific report you want. That's why we have developed what we call database AI agents. So these, I think we've all used the GPTs where you type in your natural language. Once that is typed in, here you would say, I want a report showing the top 30% defaulters at Bukoto. So it will give you that report. It will even ask you which fields specifically are you looking at. Are you looking at the client name and all that? Once that is clearly indicated, we then run that through and then it can give you the report. But it gives that based on permissions. You cannot get certain reports based on your permissions. A person who is an account manager, let's say at Bukoto, may not get a P&L report for the headquarters. That's strictly finance and strictly management. They may not get that specific information. We've had manipulation of some of these wallets. CNNs are used to look at our cameras. When you have a plate number, this can easily get it for us, and then we register it in our system. It helps us account for those that have been impounded.
Wonderful. That's very insightful, Francis, especially because you talk about very relative things like using the branch optimization, but also just-in-time model that businesses today don't have to order a lot of things, or even if you don't have space, a lot of businesses today are briefcase or cloud businesses that you don't have to have a lot of staff in your premises, but you can use this model. And you also talked about market research. Most of us don't carry out research about our market, about our product or service, but with this, we are able to do that. I'm sure with the insights you've shared, businesses can see growth. A lot of businesses can be able to mitigate risks to be able to scale, especially if they use the data insights they have gathered within the market to help them scale.
I'll go to credit risk strategies, the core of the business. This is where the biggest issue comes from. I will talk about 3 steps in assessing risk. We first set up the risk appetite, the entity, and then choose the factors for building our scorecard. This is still a data-driven process. Finally, make sure whatever you're building, whether it's a data system, it has to be compliant. Initially, we have set a default threshold. At least 5% of our clients should be able to default. So that means we're going to become a bit meaner in terms of who we lend to. But us having a rural population, we usually are more lenient to about 10-15% in acceptance. So once set, we then can calibrate approval threshold. Someone has to take accountability. Senior management sets the threshold, the credit committee calibrates, and the cutoffs are set. Once that is set, the data team comes in to apply this. We have different factors: systemic risk, systematic, and where we have control.
Hi, everyone. I'm very excited to be here with you all today. My name is Lydia Tasia. I am a data scientist with ENGIE Access. And I'm going to talk about how we use data to enable expansion. We use a lot of data at ENGIE Access to power a lot of the decisions that we make. Yes, but there are certain decisions within the organization that require more than just data. There is politics involved in certain decisions. If you're looking at expansion within the continent, there are other factors that are going to be considered other than what would be the most suitable idea as per the data. But one thing that I will note is that as far as ENGIE is concerned, for most of our expansion strategies, let's say within country, so we are in Wakiso right now. Wakiso is performing well in terms of revenue, sales. That's information that we could capture from the field. Agents look at the demographics and try to extrapolate to see where else in the country can we find characteristics similar to that, because then we will expect to receive similar amount of income, sales, and revenue. That's the part data can play. As a data team, our role is to advise on the information. But decision making has other layers on top. We'll say, okay, we've looked at the factors, demographics, income within the bracket, economic activity. Politically, is it viable? Does it align with our larger goals as a company? Have we moved to enough locations within this country, or are we looking to have more locations within this country? So those are decisions that will come into play. The second part of the question about different departments and data literacy. So here I have a very interesting example that I want to give. At the end of every month, there's a report that goes out. There is a financial report where you explain if you've made money for the company, yes or no. So for this report to be generated, there are multiple hands that contribute this information. In our case, we have a CEO report that goes out at month end. This report is generated by customer finance. Customer finance gets information from another department called data. Data gets information from databases. DevOps maintains the servers where databases for the data team sit. Software developers ensure the data in the database is actually a reflection of what has been collected. And then there is the group that actually collects the data, which is the agents who are entering this information into the UI. At the end of the month, what the CEO sees is work done by all these 6 different groups of people. So if there is no accountability at each stage, the final information is going to be off. And so that's why it's important that the first person in the field who has his pen and paper and is writing down that I'm going to visit agent X, and this is the information that I need to fill in when I reach the service center, we need to make sure that person knows the importance of that information. Because if he does not do that correctly, everything we are doing after that is null and void. The literacy at all levels is very important. Everything we're going to do, all the decisions we're going to make is dependent on the fact that these people did their work right. A lot of training at the grassroots, a lot of supervision, back and forth. Information, how do we keep this loop open? The people in the field see something, they should be able to tell the people that don't sit in the field that, hey, this is off. So at the end of the day, we are all using information we are happy with and can put a stamp on. Yeah, that is it.
But isn't that amazing that data has to go through 6 different people? People have to be responsible, take responsibility of whatever data they've collected, because at the end of the day, it informs a whole line of other professionals who bank on you to give the right data. So thank you for those insights. I will like to hear from Miss Betty.
Hi, everyone. I've gone through what the speakers are saying about storytelling data when it comes to data. What Xavier was talking about is basically that data analytics has just been the competitive advantage that Tugende has used in its business growth, because when you're speaking, you're talking about how it has helped with operational efficiency, inventory management, human resource management. That has been your competitive advantage in the market and has informed all aspects of the organization. I think for me, my question would come on the part of data integrity. Tugende is handling a lot of sensitive information for customers, for example, their financial information. Maybe you can talk about how Tugende manages it, because you're handling financial information, how Tugende manages data integrity. And then obviously Lydia's insights on strategic business direction. What stood out for me was that you acknowledge data is like gold in an organization. There are a lot of factors that can affect it. You spoke about the politics of an organization. I think maybe ENGIE would have that, but need for having a lot of organizations don't have people who value data in management positions. That's a big issue. Data literacy at all levels. My question is, does ENGIE have like training programs for people at the lower levels of the organization in terms of having an organization that values and also understands data? For my part, as a communications person, I'll just talk about storytelling. Apart from people in the organization, when you are communicating data, we are communicating it not just to internal stakeholders, we're also communicating it to external stakeholders. You want external stakeholder buy-in, and that's where marketing and communications teams come in, how to make data more digestible to people would say maybe a mutuawansi, to understand what's going on. I think why storytelling would matter is that it enhances comprehension. So data in isolation is very difficult to process. Every end of year, we have organizations like MTN delivering their end of year reports, and they post them on social media, but we always ask, what's the purpose of it and who's the target market? And people understand what the numbers mean and what they mean to them. Adding storytelling elements to data just creates emotional connection to the organization. So framing the numbers within a story can get stakeholders to relate to the impact of the numbers, not just the numbers in isolation, and also increases engagement. I'll share a very short video of an organization that does this well. This is 1 Acre. They work in agriculture and always share their data in a way that makes sense to their stakeholders. I wanted to just show an illustration on how visual storytelling, adding data into a storytelling narrative can just make sense for external stakeholders, just showing the impact that the numbers have on actual people that you're targeting. For example, with Tugende, showing a visual story of what the numbers mean for the people you are lending your money to, how it can help from a marketer's and communications perspective. That's how we bring value to data, and that's how we make value more relevant to external stakeholders who have no relevance to the decision-making process inside an organization. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Betty, for sharing about stakeholders. Impact today is a necessity. People, customers, all stakeholders want to know your impact. For Gen Zs who want to be a part of an organization, you have to convince them that you're doing something really good. Stats and data, this could be very helpful in creating a perspective or a perception about the brand, like Betty has said, and you can easily use that in your visuals as you tell your stories. So we don't have questions in the chat. I'd like to circle back to the guest speakers. Francis, is there something that Ms. Lydia mentioned that you probably are familiar with or an imagination was sparked?
I'll first answer to one of our questions posed by Betty about data integrity, which is a very key question. That's a very critical question, especially in our field. So one of the things we first do with our staff is they have to sign an NDA because the information is quite private and protected. Within our systems, we have role-based permissions. Not everyone has access to everything. So depending on the level of integrity of the data that you can access, you will have to have the specific level in the organization. And we also have what we call audit logs. So we can see whatever everyone has done. Even me, myself, I'm audited. Even though I'm managing the system myself, I am also audited externally and internally. So there are a lot of eyes on it. So we ensure that our customers' data is extremely confidential. We do not release any of that out there. Another part of my presentation I did not present was the challenges we have, especially in data. And one of the biggest challenges organizations have called misprofiling. This is something I wanted to talk about, especially with human resources. Most of the focus on data advert is usually the IT professionals. Data is more than just IT professionals. You have to expound on that. Business acumen is the main thing you should have.
And there also comes a question from Sandra Gonzaga. In regards to the growing circles in the rural areas, is Tugende partnering or supporting them?
So in regard to the question that Betty asked about training for the people at the grassroots, we offer that. There is a program that's called My Soul Academy, where the agents are brought in and given information on the data that they're collecting, what each and everything means, what the importance of what they're doing is, so that they're always aware of the importance of the work that they're doing.
So one of the biggest misconceptions we've had, again, as I was saying, was in recruitment. For a number of organizations, I've also been a consultant, and the biggest issue they are having is even when you're a statistician or IT professional, you need a lot of business acumen for that specific field. And for every IT professional on this call, I would implore that you always add on. We always have to learn in our business. And for even statisticians and economists, we also have to continue learning because it's becoming much more technological. So that's one of the biggest misconceptions. Data quality has been touched on by Lydia. I will not talk about that. That is a very big issue. And as a data professional, I also know that is the issue. And then finally, resources and budget. So one of the biggest challenges we have in our organizations is the resources and budget. And you're forced to use open source technologies to accommodate some of these things. Senior management expects you to do a lot. That's a big issue, especially in terms of the budget. You have to do a lot to get something running on your team. That's just a briefer from me.
Okay, someone asks how much of the heavy lifting is done by your system when it comes to analytics, BI, versus using BI tools like Python, Power BI, etc. By this, I mean, are the analytics native to your system versus third-party tools? And can you talk about the effort and your experience to set all this up?
Yeah, most of our analytics is third-party open source tools. We do a lot of handiwork. And that's one of the key skills you need to have, especially if you're working in an entity, especially in East Africa, where the budget for a BI team will not be able to finance some of the very expensive off-the-shelf tools. Of course, we can finance them, but it gives you much more flexibility when you're using these open source tools. Particularly in our organization, we use Python the most. Security-wise, we ensure our microservices are well protected, done by us. So the good thing with this, they are automated and you only do it once. And once you've set it up, you're good to go.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Francis. Miss Lydia?
For me, in relation to what Francis has been talking about, we don't use that much of open source tools here because of privacy and security reasons. So most of the things would be a bit closed in. But also the challenge with that is budget is always budget everywhere. Do not think it's only at that level. Even if like we will say, yes, we are paying for this service, there is always possibility to go bigger, to do better, because it's like, oh no, the data is now more, things are slower. So now you need to go into efficiencies of systems. So even if we have budget to buy more space, do you want to buy more space or efficiently use the space you have? Those are the bigger conversations that normally have to happen behind the scenes with the data teams when people are saying we need this and budget is saying no, we are not going to give you that, but we need these things to work. You have to go back and say, okay, given the fact that we are not going to get any more money, how are we going to employ this technology to function as is required, but also at the same time keeping in line with what we can afford as of now? I wanted to discuss one small challenge. Running multiple systems and collecting a lot of data is wonderful until you have to maintain it and make use of it. A lot of data is collected and its potential is not fully utilized, not because it's not there, but because there is a lot that goes into preparing that information to actually make it of use to then be able to generate insights and etc. As an organization that collects data, we are trying to be intentional with saying, okay, there's information that we have not explored. We need to find time, we need to find space to be able to make use of them so that we are not wasting money collecting it and storing it and not using it.
There's a question from Dennis. How much data is good data for decision makers to avoid analysis paralysis? You said your CEO gets a report that has traveled through 6 teams.
I think the most important thing is when management decides the metrics to measure. For example, if at all you're working in strategic marketing, you can decide as the end user of the product what problem you have and what could be a possible solution for this problem. Then now the people that work with the data explore the options of the data that is available to see how they can use what is available to address your problem and come up with solutions that could be the solution you suggested or different solutions that address the problem that you had come up with. So at the end of the day, how much is good data or information is just dependent on the problem itself. Sometimes you may need multiple sources of data, sometimes just one. So if the CEO says to know how Uganda is operating, I need metric A, B, C, and D. The data team figures out how much information you're actually going to need to produce metrics A, B, C, and D for the CEO to be able to make the decision that he needs to make. So for him, he's not bothered about how many hands, how many watts. He needs 3 numbers at the end of the month. Give him 3 numbers. Yes, that's it.
Instead of KPIs, it's OKRs. Miss Betty, your key takeout?
My key takeaway is that for that data analysts to just always remember that people remember stories more than they remember numbers. People remember context more than they remember numbers. They remember narratives more than they remember numbers, especially with external stakeholders. Weaving a story around the data in a creative way, in a way that makes sense, also in a way that's modern, especially for social media. It can drive engagement to your organization, also influence customers and create emotional connection with your customer base, with also the clients you're trying to target. Yeah, that's my parting words for data analysts.
Thank you, everybody, all the guests, the experts that made it today. Today, you're able to tell who your customer is, where they are, how much they spend on ads, or how much time they spend on the internet. So I think data in that way for businesses has been able to help people identify who their customer is, breaking it down to their persona, what they do, how they spend their money, which is always helpful. Thank you for sharing your insights, Francis, Lydia, Betty. We're much better with you today. We hope you stay informed, curious, and understand what's happening around you to help your business grow. We wish you a very wonderful evening. See you on the next webinar.
Thank you. Bye.